And there I am. Welcome to BetParks Presents, episode 35. BetParks Presents Stick to Hockey Live. Hope everybody had a great holiday. Hope it was a great one with family, friends, and kids and grandparents, and you name it. And you got everything you wanted, and you gave everything you could. So congrats. You made it through Christmas. It is a chaotic period for sure. And we got some interesting stuff to talk about this week in hockey. Now, Flyers won't return until Thursday. Excuse me. They'll be in San Jose at 10:30 puck drop there Thursday night, the 29th. But some interesting conversation. We'll have Anthony DeMarco will join us in just a second. But let me tell you about BetParks because there's a ton going on. I was watching hoops yesterday, watched the Sixers, watched a little basketball, watched a little football, watched Green Bay come back in that game. And you get all your action on the BetParks app, whether you want college or pro football. So DePaul was playing yesterday. You can in college hoops. If you want to get college or pro hoops, you can do that. You can get bowl games. You can get NFL. You can bet on hockey. You name it. If it's going on in the world of sport and more, you can get your action on it with the BetParks app. It's the greatest mobile casino and sportsbook. And it's everything you've wanted in a mobile casino and sportsbook. And it's right in the palm of your hand. And it carries with you. It's right in your pocket. It's your phone. So it's easy to sign up, fun to use, faster to win than ever before. And right now, all BetParks users, this is a great time to get in on the action. Or if you haven't been in on the action, just get back in on the action. Because new and existing users, if you use the promo code Jason750, that'll get you a risk-free bet up to $750. Again, Jason750. Terms and conditions do apply. That's for new and existing users. Excuse me, I need a little drink. A little something to lube up the pipes. Hold on. Much better. So download the BetParks app today. You do need to be over 21 and present in Pennsylvania or New Jersey. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Also, now that the holiday's over, still a great time to head down to Conkerville Subaru on Route 202 in Glen Mills. Beautiful dealership, and still time for the Subaru Share the Love event, which goes on to January 3rd, where they will donate $250 for every new Subaru sold to one of 5 charities, which you get to pick, either the ASPCA, Make-A-Wish, Meals on Wheels, Nations Parks, or Conkerville Subaru's hometown charity, which is Nemours Children's Hospital of Delaware. December and early January, great time to visit the beautiful showroom of Route 202 in Glen Mills. Still the holiday season. Check out that certified pre-owned inventory and a list of incoming Subaru vehicles. And they're more than a dealership, a great service department as well, with a free car wash with every visit. So visit ConkervilleSubaru.com and check out that showroom on Route 202 in Glen Mills. And remember, Conkerville cares. Let's head to the man right now, north of the border, see what the weather's doing up there. And also, from the fourthperiod.com, it is Anthony DeMarco. What's going on, Ant?
Not much, man. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. I hope your stomach's doing okay today. It was like an all-out assault on my digestive system this week, but I mean, actually doing it from my dad's place because Christmas tradition. I stay over here on Christmas, and that's why you see my old banner up on the doorway as this is my old bedroom. So yeah, a bit of a different look today.
Yeah, you got a little new background, and congratulations on your pending nuptials. I know that you got engaged over the holiday as well, so somebody's going to make an honest man out of you.
Yeah, I guess it's about that time, right? But yeah, one of my best friends told me that, man, you'd be such a fucking hero if you did over the holidays. Yeah. So I did over the holidays, and so far it's all systems go. So yeah, I'm an engaged man now. So we'll see how that. Talk to me in 10 years, buddy. You got to give me a good advice on what to expect down the road.
Oh man, a lot of twists, a lot of turns, and get your own studio with your own bed in it. I've been married. I've been with my wife since '99, I think so.
So since I was 5.
Yeah, we haven't been married that long. We got married in 06, or 05. Sorry, oof, screwed that up. But anyway, some interesting avenues of conversation. Ant, the Flyers have returned Thursday, and you and I talked about it. And I know you wrote an article about it on the fourthperiod.com about clarity on the horizon. But, while there are still some questions, we're starting to get some, pertinent data on what some guys are, what some guys aren't. Some guys still have a ton to prove. And there's a lot more time because some guys have taken a couple steps forward. We got to see if they take steps backwards. But what's been the biggest, I talked to Bill about this for today's Flyers Daily. What's been the biggest storyline so far this season to you? I mean, is it the Hayes Tortorella drama? Is it the resurgence of TK? Is it Carter Hart? What's been the biggest story in your eyes?
To be honest, like those are all valid storylines. Like TK really emerging as a 65, 70 point player if he holds this pace, which I was wrong about. The whole stuff with Kevin Hayes, which is coming to a head after a lot of people thought that he could have maybe been the next captain of this team. Carter Hart having a rebounding year after 2 subpar years, and a lot of people now considering him the best Canadian goalie in the NHL, although it's not like he has a ton of competition to compete against. But honestly, I think it's because it seems like this team is finally starting to accept what it is. And I heard Torts talk about it with you on Flyers Daily, that now it's the first time that we've heard members of this organization, Torts specifically, acknowledge that this team is rebuilding. Now, rebuilding could mean a lot of things, right? Like a lot of people will automatically default to, well, if they're not blowing it up like Arizona or Chicago and only going to be good in 5 years from now, it's not a rebuild. I don't think that's completely true. That's certainly a type of rebuild, but you could also have a rebuild like, let's say, the Los Angeles Kings did, where they took a step back for 2-3 years and then they came back with some existing veterans on their roster with an injection of youth. And I think that's what we're seeing with the Flyers here. I think this is a team that doesn't have to tear completely down to the studs, because you have a lot of good young players here. Like I remember someone from the Flyers told me about a week and a half ago that they still believe that defensive group is young, with the exception of Justin Braun, who we know probably won't be here in 3 months' time, and Nick Seeler, who really is nothing more than a 7th defenseman. All these guys are in their mid, some later 20s. Like I think their oldest defenseman, not counting Seeler and Justin Braun, is Ristolainen, who's 28 years old. So I think that you have a lot of good young core players here where you don't have to completely strip it down and you don't have to go the full 5-year rebuild. But I think all in all, the biggest storyline has been that they're at least acknowledging that this isn't a team that could, turn it around with a couple of free agent acquisitions. This is on some level a rebuilding team.
Yeah, it's a good point. I didn't even think about that. Torts mentioned that. And I put it out at Curtis as a promo and then the full length interview. I interviewed him on Friday. And, he said, we're rebuilding here. And, maybe that is the biggest storyline, is that admission, because I think we all kind of, even though they didn't use the word, we could see the way Torts was handling things and, his messaging. And it seems pretty, in a lot of ways, it seems pretty obvious that what they're doing. Playing young players. He basically said, I know Charlie, I think, asked the question, are you going to basically scratch either Justin Braun or Nick Seeler every game so you can have all of the young defensemen in the lineup for the most part? And he basically said yes. So, how we see that going forward will be fascinating. TK is an interesting one too, because, he's been so good. And, they scored 2, what was it, the game on where they had the
Friday,
the Carolina game,
yeah,
the 2 shorties back to back with Lawton and TK, and those 2 together on the PK has been kind of a revelation this year, because both players, power plays are meant to go east-west nowadays to get everybody kind of shifting sides, including the goaltender, and both of those guys have good sticks, and if they knock down a pass, it could go the other way. So you've got an offensive threat on the PK for the first time. And Bill brought up since Mike Richards.
Yeah, and TK, I remember when he first broke into the league in 2016-17 under Hack, he was being used a bit on the penalty kill, but that was quickly short-lived, and we haven't seen him there since. And you've seen John Tortorella really kind of overhaul that penalty kill. Like, obviously, we know him and Kevin Hayes aren't exactly foxhole guys, at least on the ice perspective, and Kevin Hayes, who was brought in to be one of the main PK guys, has barely been on the PK this year. And you give that responsibility to Travis Konecny. And I think Travis Konecny is proving that he had a lot more to give. And I'll eat my words on that. I was a guy, after seeing what he did in the 2020 playoff bubble and after the last 2 regular seasons, saying, look, this guy's a solid 50 to 55 point second line winger, but he's nothing special. And I'm not going to sit here and say he's Mitch Marner or whatever, but I think he's proving that he is a first line winger and he could offer up more than just 5-on-5 scoring. And look, 5-on-5 scoring is very important, but I think to be an impactful player, you have to have that effect on special teams. Like we always talk about it, let's say like a guy like Danny Briere, like how much he meant to that power play back in the, let's say, mid to late 2000s and early 2010s. So I really think that the way that PK has added more versatility into his game and is now, he's on pace for what, like 76, 77 points or whatever it is. And it at least has checked off a box that, like, okay, you have a top line player going forward. You have maybe the third guy. And I still will say that Travis Konecny probably should be your at least second best player on your first line, maybe even third best player on a first line. But at least you have one box check, because I think going into this season, there is a valid argument to be made that they didn't have one first line player on the team. A lot of people said Konecny was a second liner. Hayes was a second liner, or maybe even third liner.
Yeah.
Atkinson, Farabee has been underwhelming, although he's starting to turn it around here. But look, TK has meant a lot to this team. He's emerging as a leader. You've brought it up. Torts brought it up, I believe, in a press availability late last week, that how much he's going to mean to this team when they are ready to compete, which I think is kind of a tip of the hand that maybe they're planning to hang on to Travis Konecny. And it's been really nice to see, and good for him, because he's certainly a guy that they desperately needed to work out, and he's certainly doing that so far.
Kind of what you were talking about before, too. You know, the notion of the rebuild. Not all rebuilds are created equal, right? They're all different, because they all have different elements of where they're starting. And you know, some people look at a rebuild and they say it's only a true rebuild if you tear it down, if you sell off all assets and start from scratch. But you know, they're not all created equal, and the timeline on them is it's different for all of them. Yeah, you have your Buffaloes and you have your Arizonas where it seems like it's in perpetuity. But the thing about it is this: you know, to put a timeline on a rebuild is almost foolish, because it can change at the drop of a dime. One bout of lottery luck changes your timeline. One bad injury changes your timeline. You know what I mean? On a rebuild. So you could sit there. Like, I got this guy that keeps just fucking tweeting me. They should trade Konecny. He's never been a 30 goal scorer. His value's the highest right now, blah, blah, blah. And they should trade him because they're not going to be good for 8 to 10 years. Okay, now, if that's the prospect of a rebuild, then I'm going to be in the ground. Like, that's ridiculous. You know what I mean? And this notion that they won't be good for 8 to 10 years is ridiculous. Things change really quick in the NHL. And, you know, look, could they not be good for 8 to 10 years? Sure. Buffalo's done it. But is that because Buffalo has just screwed this up? In some ways, yeah.
Look, I mean, I think a lot of people equate those 8 to 10 year rebuilds with what we saw from, let's say, the Penguins and the Bruins in the early 2000s. But you have to realize that those rebuilds started pre-cap era. And in the pre-cap era, you're damn right, they could have taken 8 to 10 years. But because of the salary cap, because of the parity that the NHL has insisted upon among the teams, I don't think it's necessary. Yes, it could happen. But, you know, I've seen a lot of people float this idea out about, like, would getting a Bedard or to a lesser extent Fantilli solve all of the Flyers' problems? And no, it wouldn't.
It accelerates the process.
It accelerates the process because I remember I was texting with you a bit about, like, if they had, let's say, by some grace of God, you know, they win the first overall pick and they get Connor Bedard. And we were just kind of throwing out, like, mock lineups for next year. This isn't a cup team. But there's a case to be made that this would be a playoff team if you just drop Connor Bedard on this roster and you get back a healthy Sean Couturier. Big if, but you're seeing what Cutter Gauthier is doing. I think he's going to be in the NHL next year. I could be wrong, but I think that's where it's going to go, because I just don't see how he would benefit from going back to college another year after this. And if you bring in a Connor Bedard and then you are able to push everyone down a peg, because that's another thing about this is, like, I had someone say, well, look, the Oilers have McDavid and Draisaitl, and they can't bring them to, like, being like a true cup contender. But I don't think the Oilers have depth. Like, I looked at this stat, and this was as of Wednesday, so it's for sure changed since. But their top 4 forwards, and we're not counting Evander Kane because he's been injured for the last month or so. Mm-hmm. Between their 4th highest scoring forward in Zach Hyman and their 5th highest scoring forward, I believe it was Ryan McLeod, there's a 27-point difference.
Wow.
The Oilers have no depth scoring behind their top four, and when Kane is healthy, top five forwards. If the Flyers got two high-end talent players, and you're able to push Owen Tippett down a peg, Joel Farabee down a peg, if he's still here, Kevin Hayes down a peg, and on you go, I think the Flyers would have a pretty good depth scoring up front. It's just that this team has absolutely no high-end talent to speak of. Now you're starting to see Travis Konecny at least produce like a top-line player. But even at that, is he a high-end talent player? You know, I wouldn't consider that. I would just say he's a first-line player.
Yeah.
But if you add in a Connor Bedard and Cutter Gauthier, not to say it would happen overnight, but a lot of things change.
Yeah, and things accelerate dramatically. I mean, look at the Penguins. You know, Crosby's first year, they were not a great team. But then as all those guys at the same time came up, and you're talking about Malkin and Crosby and Letang and Fleury, that became your core. And by 09, well, 08, they lose in the Cup final, and 09, they win. So, I mean, it happened really, and let's be honest, things were really ugly in Pittsburgh. So it's not necessarily that they were bad. It's that they were bad at the right time, too, because they got some good players along the way.
And I heard your conversation with Alex Appleyard, very insightful conversation. He's a very smart guy. I think I sold him short after all these years, but really, really smart guy. And he said something I liked is that, and maybe you could correct me if I'm off on this, but he said something along the way is that for the foreseeable future, I would not worry about the Flyers like second, third, and fourth lines and like second pair and third pair. Like he thinks that they have enough talent throughout their system where they don't have to worry about that part of their lineup.
Yeah, the cupboard's full in those areas
of like NHL caliber players.
Mm-hmm.
So if you drop, and let's say Gauthier ends up being a 75-point player, like TK's caliber, and then by some grace of God, you win the first overall pick and you drop Connor Bedard on this roster, it changes a lot because like Alex really kind of laid out there in a very good way, you kind of put it in layman's terms, is that this team has a lot of talent throughout its organization, not on the roster, but a lot of talent that has that middle of the road NHL ceiling type of caliber players. You just need that high end talent because you could have all the second and third liners you want, but if you don't have those superstars, you're not going to win jack shit. And I think
goaltending.
And goaltending. But I even think that goaltending, they're well set up too. Like, didn't you guys talk about how they're pretty well set up in the goaltending?
Yeah, I mean, they also have that. I mean, you have it from obviously at the NHL level with Hart. Then whether you have, you know, we have to still figure out what Sandstrom is, but Ersson, and we still have to find what he is, but Kolosov is developing well in Russia. He's a few years away. But like his numbers, you know, as a 20-year-old are basically what Sorokin's and Shesterkin's were at that age in the K.
Yeah, and then if you could ever sort out what's going on with Fedotov, obviously there's a lot more pressing issues in his life than hockey, but I think they're well set up everywhere except for that high-end talent. And you can make that case on the back end too. Like, I mean, I don't think they have a true franchise defenseman anywhere in their organization. Like, I think, you know, a lot of people have said like trade Provorov, and I wouldn't even be completely against that. I could tell you that they are not actively looking to shop him, but obviously, like almost every player there, he's not untouchable. But I think it was Russ Cohen who said it very well with you, is that, like it or not, if you move Provorov, you don't have a better option to replace him. Like if you thrust Sanheim or Cam York into that number one role, like I would argue you'd probably get worse results, and you're killing your depth on your back end because the way that their back end is constructed right now, and obviously it's kind of hard to evaluate their back end in a real way because they're defending so damn much that they're obviously cracking more than, let's say, they would if they were even on a middle of the road team. But I think the way their back end is constructed right now is the do it by committee approach because they don't have that true stud like a Makar or a Hedman or a Heiskanen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you trade Provorov, you're looking for a guy like Provorov or better.
Yeah.
That's what you're looking for. And I think we have to remember what Provorov was with Niskanen. So would it be more prudent to trade him, or would it be more prudent to find the right partner for him?
Well, the partner thing obviously would be the best. It's just it seems like this is like an endless quest. Like they've been trying for years. And Ryan Ellis, I think, if he had stayed healthy, would have been the best course of action. I think obviously hindsight's 2020, but they probably should have gone all in on a guy like Dougie Hamilton just to try and settle that once and for all. But
didn't have that money though at the time.
yeah,
The timing just didn't work.
yeah, and you just and the right shot defensemen, they're so routinely overpaid, and even left shot defensemen. Like we talk about how bad the Rasmus Ristolainen contract is in a vacuum, and look, he's not a $5 million defenseman in a vacuum. But then you look at Gabranson getting $4 million. Ben Sherratt got 4 by 4.75 from a guy that a lot of people consider to be the best general manager in the NHL, and Steve Yzerman.
Just defensemen in general get overpaid when they get to free agent. I mean, look at like Nurse,
Seth Jones.
Yeah,
and that's the problem, is that you're going out and trying to get a commodity that's so highly sought after, especially a right shot guy. Like there's just simply not enough right shot defense in the NHL, and you're consistently overpaying via trade. You're overpaying via contracts. Rasmus Ristolainen is a complete example of that, where you overpay to get him in a trade, and then you probably overpay to keep him. But then you look at what the cost of replacement is, and you're just like, well, what are we going to end up doing? Like, if you want to go out and get a true top 4 defenseman, preferably a right shot, what are you going to pay for this guy? And you see what happens. Like, you look at a guy, let's say like Scott Mayfield of the New York Islanders, pending UFA. Like that guy is probably going to get like 5 by 5, if not more. And that's just the landscape of the NHL. And that's why they always say draft and develop. And I don't know if Ronnie Adder is that guy, probably asking too much, but he's kind of a high end defenseman, is he not?
Yeah. I'm not ready to put those kind of eggs in that basket. I mean, the thing is too, is wait till the cap starts going up. You know what I mean? Wait till this thing starts escalating and you see the numbers. It's going to be like fucking sticker shock. You're going to freak out. Be like, holy cow, like that dude got that kind of dough, but eventually, once all this escrow is paid back from the COVID years, that cap's going to start going up steeply. And it's going to be crazy what guys are getting, because it's a market. Like Sanheim on the open market would have got good money because he was the top guy.
Yeah.
Like, the market was set with the deal in Calgary.
Yeah.
And then, so you look at it and you go, okay, what would he have gotten? Well, he would have gotten more than he's worth because he's the only one. He's the top of his field. So I think that's why Hayes got paid what he got paid. I think that's why JVR got paid what he got paid too. I mean, JVR wasn't the top that year, but he was the number 2 guy.
Yeah.
Power play, goal scoring kind of guy.
That was the Panarin. No, it was the year before Panarin. It was 2018. They signed JVR, but Kevin Hayes is a good example. And I think I spoke about this on my other podcast, Brotherly Pod, where I said you have to differentiate like a bad contract in a vacuum and what's par for the course on the open market.
Yeah.
When Kevin Hayes
based on your needs too.
Based on your needs, because when Kevin Hayes got signed, that was before COVID, the summer of 2019. The cap was expected to skyrocket. Like if it wasn't for COVID, the cap's probably at 90 million right now, if not maybe a bit more. And Matt Duchene got 8 by 7 years at $8 million. And I could tell you, living here in Montreal, they were offering him 9.5, but he took less because of the no tax state in Nashville. So Kevin Hayes at that time, with the projection of the cap going up, $7 million, was just like, okay, it's an overpay, but with the cap going up, it's going to age nice. Now, the fact that the cap has gone up $2 million since they signed that contract, you're probably saying, yeah, it's not great. And I would say like Kevin Hayes is what, a $5 to $5.5 million player.
The other thing too is that Nolan Patrick couldn't go.
Exactly. They were stuck. They absolutely had to sign him. And look, the thing is that every time you sign a player worth any kind of value in free agency, you're going to overpay. It's like the James Van Riemsdyk thing. And I've been guilty of this too, where I say, oh, he's not a $7 million player. They're paying him too much, which he isn't a $7 million player. But if you go in free agency and you want to sign a top 6 winger who could give you 25 goals with his eyes closed, you're going to have to pay a decent contract. And I think the fact that they only got him 5 years was pretty good on Ron Hextall's part. So that's just the fact of the matter. It's like, I always use this example, is that when they signed Danny Briere, they gave him $6.5 million a year. if you prorated that to what the cap is now, Danny Briere would have been being paid $10.5 million.
Yeah.
Was he ever a 10 and exactly? So were we ever complaining that they signed Danny Briere to that 8-year contract?
Yeah, you're right. If you go by percentage of the cap.
Yeah, and I think that's just what it is. Like if you want to go get that type of player in free agency, you are going to pay out through your nose. It's just the fact of the matter. And like obviously Briere's a special situation because he was arguably, you have much more history knowledge than me, but you could argue he was the best free agent signing this team has ever had. I think that may be fair to say. But I remember when he wasn't like maybe in his third year, 09-10, where he only scored 53 points, people were screaming and crying and, oh, he's not worth the money.
But then he had the great playoff run.
Exactly. And then I think he had his best year in 2010-11. I think he had like 76 points or whatever it is. So it's just to say that you want an impact player or just want a value player. We saw it with Nick Delorier. He had value across several teams in the NHL, and the Flyers gave him a contract that in a vacuum, he's not worth. But I think the valid argument here is that are you in a position to be overpaying these players?
Yeah.
I think that's a valid point. But this whole thing of free agency and getting mad and up in arms that you're overpaying, that's just the landscape of the NHL.
That's free agency in a nutshell. Yeah. That's what free agency is. You will overpay. It's why draft and develop is the way to build the core. You can't build a core through acquisitions and free agency because you overpay and you're going to be upside down and you won't be able to build a team. And even, draft and develop, like, I mean, how much development did Edmonton have to do with Draisaitl and McDavid? Probably not a ton because they're insane, but these guys, they just can't build a team there. It's nuts. And good stuff, man. We're going to keep them a little short this week.
That's holidays.
Yeah. I mean, we're waiting for the games to restart here. So check out Ant's stuff on thefourthperiod.com. Give him a follow on Twitter at @DeMarco25. And we'll talk next week in 2023, brother.
Yeah, man. Happy New Year. Take it easy.
Holy shit. It's going to be 2023. That's nuts. There he is. Anthony DeMarco on BetParks Presents Stick to Hockey Live. Yeah, I can't believe next week's going to be 2023. Like, what happened? I remember Y2K. Feels like it was not that long ago. 23 years ago. It's insane. The all-new BetParks Casino and Sportsbook app, it is now live. And you can take it from me. It's a fantastic app that you can just buzz around with right here with your phone. Take it wherever you go. On the move. It's the greatest mobile casino and sportsbook out there. And you need to download it because it is easy to use, faster to win than ever before. And you can get in all kinds of different action, whether it's same-game parlays, live in-game betting, player performances, props, parlays, teasers, straight bets, futures on college and pro hoops, hockey, World Juniors, football, bowls, and of course, pro, and anything else. It's all out there for you. So check it out. Get the BetParks app. And right now, BetParks users, all BetParks users can use the promo code Jason750. That'll get you the risk-free bet up to $750. Terms and conditions do apply. So download the BetParks app today. You need to be over 21 and present in Pennsylvania or New Jersey. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Also, visit my friends at Conquerville Subaru. Share the love event going on through January 3rd, where they'll donate $250 for every new car sold to one of 5 charities, either the ASPCA, Meals on Wheels, Make-A-Wish, Nations Park, so they're Conquerville Subaru's hometown charity, the Nimworth Children's Hospital, Delaware. And you can visit the beautiful showroom of Route 202 in Glen Mills. Check out the certified pre-owned inventory, a list of incoming Subaru vehicles, and more than a dealership. Great service department, free car wash with every visit. So do yourself a favor. Visit ConquervilleSubaru.com. All the details are there. And also check out the showroom again on Route 202 in Glen Mills. And remember that Conquerville cares. All right, Wednesday, we'll be back with another brand new episode 36. Anthony Sanfilippo from Crossing Broad, Snow the Goalie, and the Crossing Broadcast will join us on Wednesday's episode, and we'll continue the hockey talk this week. So everybody, enjoy your Monday. We'll talk to you coming up next this Wednesday for another brand new edition of BetParks Presents Stick to Hockey Live.